Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to my podcast today. And today I have a very special guest, Mr. Jim Marshall. Now, let me start off this way. What is the secret to understanding yourself and everyone around you was hidden in 7 levels of behavior that no one ever taught you? Today on the Curious Tycoon Podcast, we sit down with a true intellectual pioneer, Jim Marshall, author of Septemics, Hierarchies of Human Phenomena. Jim comes with over 50,000 hours of research and a career spanning 4 decades in human development. Jim has discovered something that very few others have: a structured, scientific approach to personal evolution that changes how we see ourselves, our relationships, and even our society. Ladies and gentlemen, permit me to welcome Mr. Jim Marshall to the podcast today. Hello, Jim. How are you doing today?
Great. Good to see you. Thank you.
Yeah, you've honestly, it's an honor to have you today on the podcast. How has your day been? What have you been up to lately?
Well, it's just another beautiful day in Arizona, as usual, and I'm very busy and happy to talk to you.
Right. So our topic today is, I mean, obviously you've talked about this thing, it is septemics a lot. You've talked about it, it's your thing. What do you think about the topic today, which is decoding human nature, the power of septemics? What do you think about that topic?
Perfect.
Perfect. Right. Okay.
That's exactly what Septemics does.
Great. All right. So, Jim, you've dedicated over 50,000 hours of your time to studying human behavior. So, what originally sparked your obsession with trying to understand people on such a deep level?
Well, first of all, let me say Septemics goes far beyond human nature. It's a much bigger subject. The study of human behavior is the definition of psychology, and Septemics is much bigger than psychology. It's a separate subject, but much bigger. As far as answering your question, I have no memory of a time when I was not intensely interested in learning everything taught in every university. Now, of course, no one can do that because we don't live that long, but the drive was there, and it impelled me forward continuously. I started school when I was 3, and I have been involved in education one way or another my entire life to this very day. So I have an insatiable curiosity. For me, knowledge is not a means, but an end. So when I understand something, that is my accomplishment, the understanding, which is how I became a polymathic intellectual, because anything that comes into my purview, I'm going to study it and I'm going to learn all about it. But let me jump forward a little bit and tell you how this led me to Septemics. The story of Septemics really begins when I was accepted into engineering school at the age of 16. Now, of course, at that time, I thought I was going to be engineering physical things, such as airfoils, motors, electrons, and so forth. But
Yes.
by the time I had my bachelor's degree, it was clear to me that I wanted to engineer the human psyche, because it is the area of greatest mystery and greatest unknown, and more importantly, it is the area in which we as a race are failing miserably. 95% of the problems in industrialized society are because people don't understand people. Don't understand the husband, don't understand the wife, don't understand the son, don't understand the boss, don't understand the business partner. This is huge. And I eventually, through Septemic, solved that completely across 35 axes. So to make a long story short, I had a long career as a human development engineer, using engineering approach, engineering tactics, engineering devices, engineering strategies, engineering materials, et cetera, on my clients one-on-one to help my clients attain higher levels of enlightenment, ability, and so forth. All of my clients improved as a result of our interaction. But incidentally, as this was going on, I started to notice that I could predict the outcome of the session. I never told this to anyone, but I made notes. And as the decades rolled by, it became obvious to me that the client would be at a specific level on a specific scale that I had previously observed and recorded. And as a result of our interaction, he would go up to the next level on that scale. Now, this happened thousands and thousands of times. And every time it did, it verified my hypothesis. Because the clients knew absolutely nothing about what I was doing. They had no idea what I was recording, what I was noticing, how I was thinking about this, how I was guiding. I used very complicated, sophisticated techniques. They had no idea what they were. But still, they manifested these phenomena. But then you have to realize I would go out of the session into the real world, and I'd be standing on a line in a grocery store, and I'd see two people, and they would manifest the exact same phenomena. So after a while, it became patently obvious to me, after many decades, this was like some sort of universally applicable material. And everybody was on some scale, some level and some scale. I have to tell you, I've been working with this material now about 50 years. I have never found an exception. I have never found a person who was not at some level on one of the scales. What I find is in seconds, I find there he is on that level on the scale. It's just like noticing the difference between a rose and a tulip. You know, every tulip in the world is unique, and every rose in the world is unique. But I can always tell the difference between the two, and you probably can too. And once you learn the septemic data, that's how people become to you. In other words, it's inarguable. So this is natural law. Now, let me tell you how I know that. About 1995, I had observed and recorded about 32 scales that varied in like between 3 and 7, just from seeing them and writing them down. Nobody knew anything about this. Around that same time, I was pondering a difficult client, and I realized that this client was at a specific level on a specific scale that I had not previously observed. I had this 6-level scale that by then I knew was correct. But I realized at that moment there's a 7th level. This is actually a 7-level scale. As soon as I saw what the level was, it was obvious to me where to insert it. And when I inserted that 7th level into the 6th-level scale, at that moment it manifested mathematically. Now, having taken 26 semesters of math, having loved every minute of it, let me tell you what I mean by that. The whole idea of math is you start with an equation or formula and you coax data out of it. You get the numbers to talk to you. They tell you things. You learn by manipulating them according to the laws of mathematics, something new. That's how Einstein found E equals mc squared. He just worked with the data and he got down to the bottom. Wait a minute, E equals mc squared. That's big. See? So that's when you have data present itself to you, that is a mathematical manifestation. See, I wasn't looking for mathematics. I was just helping my clients. So when I saw this, at that exact moment, that 6-level scale went to a 7-level scale. It went from being a line, which is what a scale is, to a plane, meaning a whole body of data, because all this data presented itself, and it was all mathematical. So I now had all of these intersecting, interlocking mathematical phenomena related to this scale. And I saw it had mathematics embedded in it, and I said, wait a minute. Whatever the hell this is, it has to be natural law because it has mathematics embedded in it. And anything that has mathematics embedded in it, like, for example, the Fibonacci sequence, is natural law. So then I thought, I found something here. I wasn't looking for this. And then I said, I wonder how many of these other scales that I have are actually 7-level scales that had not been developed all the way because I wasn't developing anything. I was just helping my clients and making notes. So then, knowing what I was looking for, which is the key, I inspected all of these scales. In a short period of time, each of them went to 7 levels, and when it did, it manifested mathematically. So I now had 32 7-level scales, each of which had mathematics embedded in it. I said, whoa, this looks like a new subject to me. Because realize I went to school for 28 years, was a very good student, and I never saw anything like this. I thought, looks like I found something new. Then my next thought, wait a minute, this could really help people if I get this out to people so they can have it. So I guess I'm going to have to write a book so that I can present this to the world. Well, the first draft of the book was finished in December of 95, and I sent it to colleagues of mine, all of whom had graduate degrees in a variety of subjects. They loved it. They had different responses, but distinctly positive responses. And I all knew these men were brilliant men. So when I saw that, I said, okay, they're telling me that this is exactly what I think it is, which is a new subject that could really help people. It makes sense. I then spent the next 25 years of my life working on this book. And let me tell you why. First, I had to discover the phenomena, the septemic phenomena. And I pretty much already explained to you how I did that in the sessions, although I did find 3 more scales as I was writing the book. So now there are 35. Then I had to take this data and I had to use it to craft a workable philosophic system. Now, as an engineer, like all engineers, I'm only interested in results and facts. In engineering, you're not allowed to say, whoops. You can't just have the bridge fall down into the river and say, whoops, sorry.
Why did it fall down? Yeah. You need to
Right, because it was
present
not
it.
engineered properly.
Yeah.
So that is why in engineering we have all kind of these redundant checks to make sure that that never happens, because it has to work. If you say, well, okay, I think this motor can work on 100 volts. You don't run it on 100 volts, you run it on 120. You see, you give it some room.
Yeah.
It took 20 years for me to craft a workable philosophic system that would work every time for every person who could read English.
Hmm. Incredible. That's first of all, that's a very good intro to this topic. It's not a topic that I'm familiar with, and I'm sure a lot of the people in my audience as well aren't familiar with what septemics is. So I mean, there are so many theories out there, Jim. So, how does this framework in psychology, how does it differ from all the, what is septemics and how does it differ with all the other theories out there
Okay,
on
first,
self-development?
first of all, it's natural law. It's natural law in the same way that the Pythagorean theorem is natural law, in the same way that Newton's 3 laws of motion are natural law. Okay? In other words, these data existed for at least thousands of years. I mean, I don't know where they originated from, but I have made historical analyses of people from thousands of years ago, and they fit into this phenomena. It was there. It's just that nobody spotted it. So that's number one. It's natural law. This has nothing to do with opinion. I do not give opinions. Even if people ask me, my clients would sometimes say to me, you think I should marry this woman? I would never answer that question. I had an idea whether I should, but that's not my place. I would say, what do you think? See? And I'm still like that. I'm very reluctant to give my opinion on anything. Now, for my students, sometimes I will give an opinion because that's my job if it's something technical. So, should I do it this way or do it this way? Say, no, do it the second way. The first way is not the right way. See, because that's what they're asking me to do, to tell them how to use it, whatever
Yeah.
subject it is. I've been tutoring since I was 14. I've tutored all kinds of stuff. Okay, so I got really good at that. So Now, you could say, well, isn't astrology based on natural law? And I would say, yes. But here's the difference. All you get from astrology is a tendency. You do not get something that is absolute and verifiable. So, for example, I've met people, I tell them what my son is, they say, well, gee, you don't seem like that. You seem like this. See? Well, if you look at my whole horoscope, they're actually seeing something correct because I have 3 planets in that area, 3 planets under that sign. So it's a big influence, but it's still just a guess. Like, for example, people who were born in the year of the tiger, which I am, are known for being reckless. Okay? This has been known for thousands of years, and I've known plenty of people, and they're reckless. But I have to tell you, I am the least reckless person you will ever meet because I know it and I have forewarned myself against it. Okay? There's no way I'm going to be reckless. So I have had that sitting there. Don't do it. You know?
Yeah. Because you are aware.
Right. I'm aware
Because
of
of
it.
oh,
It does not happen. So you can't say, well, this guy must be reckless because he's one of the years. No, it's true. That is a tendency, but I rein it in. If I find myself thinking about doing something, no, I'm not going to do that.
yeah. Yeah.
So that's the problem with astrology. All it gives you is a tendency. It says if you do business on this day, it's probably not going to work out. That doesn't mean it definitely isn't going to work. It's just a tendency. You see? So that's the difference. This is natural law, and every human being is at some level on every scale, on all 35 scales. Let me tell you, if I may, for the benefit of your listeners, exactly what Septemics is. Septemics is a philosophical science based on the fact that many phenomena related to humans occur in a sequence of 7 levels. Literally, the word septemics means of or pertaining to 7. Septemics comprises a collection of scales, each of which creates or presents a hierarchy, okay, for this area of human phenomena, these 35 different areas. It breaks down that phenomena into 7 steps. So let's take the area of control. There are 7 levels of control. I don't think anybody outside Septemics knows that. They have the idea, well, this guy is not in control and this guy is. That's binary. There are 7 levels. And once you know what they are, you can look at a guy and say, he's at this level. That's why he does X, Y, and Z. See, this makes it very easy to understand people. So let me explain this to you in a way that's an analogy. Let's say you invited me to your garden just because I like gardens and I want to see your garden, right? I say, show me your garden. You say, sure, come over, right? So I go to Chuck's house, and there in his garden, I see hydrangeas, irises, tulips, chrysanthemums, roses, begonias, right? Now, the reason I can analyze it that way is I've been gardening since I was a little boy. I know a lot about flowers,
Yeah.
right? Now, if you bring some 5-year-old girl into your yard and show it to her, she is going to see and smell the same thing that I saw and smelled, right? But
Yeah.
all she can say is, these are pretty and they smell nice. That's all she knows, right? She doesn't know this is a chrysanthemum, this is a hydrangea. So, and she also doesn't know anything about how to take care of them. See, I could actually advise you if you wanted me to. If you said, can you give me some help on these chrysanthemums? I could say, well, they shouldn't be getting this much sun. You should put them in the shade. So it's useful data to me, right? Which she doesn't have. Now, most adults are like that little girl regarding people. They don't know what they're looking at.
Oh,
So that is why in the United States, for example, more than 50% of the marriages end in divorce. Clearly,
that's
those people did not know what they were looking at, right? The guy is looking at the girl, he sees her as a rose, turns out she's a chrysanthemum. It's not what he wants. See? So so this is really useful in any part of your life. Let me tell you in three different ways how this is beneficial to people without getting into specific examples. I wrote this book to help people. Each of these 35 scales provides the user with an infallible way of determining the salutariness or beneficialness of any group individual activity. If the group individual activity moves persons up the scale, it's beneficial or positive. If it moves them down, it's detrimental or negative. So I'm giving you a yardstick by which to measure human affairs, which is an entirely new thing. More importantly, just finding out what level you or another person is at on any scale is by itself inherently beneficial and enlightening. Every time you correctly spot anyone on any scale, you have a realization. So let's say you're having trouble with your mother-in-law, right? Saying this woman seems like a control freak to me. So you look at the scale of control. See, you see that she's described perfectly at level 6. This explains it. She's at level 6 on the scale of control. That's why she does that. See, now you understand her better. Now, you may not be able to do anything to get her to change, but you can handle her better because you know what you're dealing with.
Yeah. Yeah. Let me just.
Let me finish the third one, and then you
Okay.
can ask me.
Yeah.
Okay. Then, finally, once you know the correct level of any person on any scale, you can improve that person by moving them up one level. If you're at
Right.
level 4 and you try to get to level 3, you will get there. You know why? It's the next level up.
Mm.
If you're at level 4 and you try to get to level 1 or 2, you will fail because it's too steep a gradient. So this is really useful. You can move yourself up. You say, oh, I see on the scale of allegiance, I'm at level 5. That's not so great. And you could work yourself up to level 4, see? And then you're better in that specific area. And you can do
Yeah.
this on yourself or on others. And it tells you in the book how to do it. So what was your question?
Yeah. I was just gonna come back, and I'm sure, obviously, when I read the book, I'm sure I would be able to understand this a lot more. So, feel free to either refer me to the book or answer. So, what with this theory, aren't you putting everything on a spectrum, right?
Yes.
Isn't it what's happening here? Putting everything on a spectrum to say, oh,
Yes.
it can either be warm or hot, and is that what's going on here with this theory?
Yes,
Yeah.
this is just like Sir Isaac Newton famously shined a beam of white light through a prism and he got a rainbow. Red, orange, yellow, green, blue, and violet, right? So these 7 levels are just like the rainbow. Now, notice in the rainbow, it always goes red, orange, yellow, green. There are no rainbows that have other arrangements. Because when you slow down the beam of light by putting it through the prism, it makes the next color. So that is what this is like. You see? So this is like the 7 phenomena that manifest in this area. And so it's always 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It's inarguable. That's what it is.
Yeah. Right. Interesting. You described Septemics as a revolutionary practical philosophic system. Right. Can you explain to us a little bit what that means for someone who is unfamiliar with that term?
Okay. Okay.
Revolutionary practical philosophic system.
Okay, so let's take it word by word. The philosophy means love of wisdom. That's what the word means. Okay? So this is developing your love of wisdom. This is giving you wisdom. When you study philosophy, it's because you want to increase your wisdom, right? That's what philosophy is about. Okay. Now, obviously, it's a system because it's in a book, it's on pages. So it's a system. Now, it's revolutionary because nothing like this has ever existed before on Earth that I know of. Now, maybe something like this existed 5,000 years ago and we don't know about it. That could be, but it doesn't matter because to us, it's
Doesn't
revolution.
exist. Yeah, it's new.
And I didn't come up with that word revolution. People who read it told me this is revolutionary. Okay, so that's how I described it. You know, I've been getting feedback on this for 30 years now. Because the first book came out in 1995, first version, right? And I rewrote it a half a dozen times because I send it out. I get feedback from students and clients and peers and such, and I rewrite it to make it clearer, more easy to understand, release it again, get more feedback. And the result was that I was able to create something that anybody like you could use. Now, when I say like you, obviously you could read English reasonably well, and obviously you're interested in improving yourself and others. Now, don't think that everyone wants to improve themselves or others because there's plenty of people who don't. This would include psychopaths, sociopaths, professional criminals, narcissists, war criminals, corrupt politicians. There's all kinds of categories of people, ignoramuses, who they're not interested in improving themselves or others. So this book is obviously not for them. I mean, if you were to find some guy who is a drug dealer and a drug user and a torturer, he wouldn't be interested in this book. He'd say, "Get the hell out of here. I don't want to see this book." But if he did read it, he wouldn't understand it anyway.
Yeah.
Because he is at or near the bottom of all these scales, which is why he's that way. See, the dregs of society exist at the bottom of these scales. And the true elites, like Jesus and Gandhi, are at the top of the scale. So this is actually good because bad people are not going to benefit from this. They're not going to be able to use it. It's over their heads. People like
Right.
you.
Yeah. So why did you choose to organize the findings into seven levels? What is it about the number seven
Okay,
that is
first of
so
all,
powerful?
I did not choose to organize it that way. Remember, I was just helping my clients. People come to me with something in their life. Jim, I have this drinking problem. Can you help me? Sure. And we get in session. I work with the guy. I use my techniques. He says, now I see why I'm drinking. Blah, blah. See, he's better now. So I just wrote down what I observed. I did not organize this. It organized me. So that's the first thing. But as far as why seven, there is a section in the book called Why 7, where I explain exactly why 7. And that is on my website. If you go to my website and click on the section that says Introduction to Septemics and read it, go down, you'll see the section that says Why 7, and I explained it in about 2 pages. It's a mathematical explanation.
Okay, we're gonna dive deeper into the discovery now and the development of this concept. Yeah, so just take us back a moment, to the moment where you realized that you had discovered something here, something entirely new. What was that? What was that moment like for you?
Well, the moment, the birth of Septemics, I already told you, was when I had this difficult client and I had this 6-level scale. And then I said, after much thought, there's a 7th level scale. No wonder I couldn't figure this out. There's another level and she's at it. And when I put it in and I saw it manifest mathematically, that was the birth of Septemics. Because I saw right in front of me, this is natural law. It went from being a line to a plane. It went woof without my trying to do that. So that was where it came from. And to me, as an intellectual, it was interesting to me because, I'm a very inquisitive person. And that's why my next thought was, I wonder how many of these other scales that I have are actually 7-level scales. I didn't know what I was going to find, but I knew what I was looking for. It's much easier to find something when you know what you're looking for, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Let's get a description. Okay, so this guy is wearing a
yeah,
blue jacket. He has jeans on. He's wearing a red baseball cap. Okay, so doesn't mean that they might stop somebody in those clothes. It might not be the right guy, but they know what they're looking for. See, he might have changed his clothes. So I knew what I was looking for. Now this is a big thing in engineering because there's an ancient datum in engineering that says 90% of finding the right answer is asking the right question. So when I asked the question, I wonder if some of these other scales are actually 7-level scales. That was the right question. See, they were. And so because I was asking the right question, I was able to see it. Before that, I didn't have that question. Engineers do this all the time, 7 days a week. This is what we do. We ask the right question. Like somebody gives me an amplifier, says, Jim, fix this amplifier, right? So I have to ask the right question. So let's say it's an old-fashioned lamp before it has tubes in it. I take out all the tubes and test them. They all test fine. Okay, put it back. I asked the wrong question. So now I say, let me check the power supply. It's got a break in it. Okay, I pull it out. I put in a new one. It works. Fixed. Call up the client. Come and get it. It's fixed. Here's how much it is. Because I asked the right question. See?
Yeah.
If it wasn't the power supply, I would have asked the third question. Like, let's check all these condensers. See? So that's how engineering proceeds. And that's how I handled my clients. I would ask the right question. I knew where the session was going. Like I would know that this guy was upset at his mother. I would know that from the biofeedback. And I say to him, were you upset with your mother? And the biofeedback would go, boom. Yeah, how'd you know that?
Gonna have to
Well,
send
tell
it
me
to.
about it. See? The biofeedback helped me ask the right question.
All right. I mean, you've talked about your background in theology, but you've not really, talked about the military science background that you have. How did how did the diversity there in these areas, what role did they play in the development of septemic?
Well, let me say this. While I was a student, all of these different things that I studied were separate. I studied math. Okay, I'm studying math. Then I study physics. Okay, I'm studying physics. Now I'm studying military science. Just like every other student, right? It's just I was a really good student. So I would get it totally. Now, at some point over the years, because I've been meditating for 40 years, it all coalesced in my mind. So in my mind, all the subjects in which I am an expert are one big thing. So I see mathematics and psychology. I see military science and political science. I see philosophy and theology. I see parapsychology and engineering. I see all these things
Connection.
manifesting together. So when these data presented themselves to me in 1995, I was able to see them for what they were because I had this polymathic approach, which is very unusual today because our education system militates against polymathy. It specializes. And so most people, like you find a guy, he's a lawyer, he knows law really well, but I know everything else better than he does. Or another guy, he's a math graduate. Okay, so he knows math better than I do, but I know everything else better than he does. And I have all these friends just like this. Yeah, I got a friend, he's got a master's degree from MIT in engineering. He knows more engineering than I do, but I know more about everything else. So all of this coalesced in my mind, and I'm sure the meditation was a big part of that because any blocks that I had, I got rid of through the meditation. So my mind was very open and fertile. It was very easy for me to see things in a way that most people don't see them. This is a fact that's been there for many decades. I'll look at some situation, I'll know exactly what's going to happen, and that's what happens. This happens all the time. Other people say, "How did you know that?" Like I would have a couple come to me for some of my work, and I'd work with, for example, the wife, right? Not the husband, just the wife, and I would know they were going to get a divorce. I'm not saying I'm happy about it, but I would just know
Yeah.
that's going to happen. Okay. So the client's done. We finished all this work. And 6 months later, she calls up and says, I divorced that guy. Oh, really? Just tell me about it. I knew that was going to happen. And that's because of my polymathic insight into things. So all of these different subjects to me, and if you read the book, you will see that the many areas of my expertise show up in the book one way or another in different places.
Okay. I mean, yeah, honestly, I'm looking forward to reading that book because I'm someone who seeks knowledge. I like to learn new things. So yeah, and I'm sure as well that everyone that's watching us, guys, obviously we're gonna put links to the book where people can get it, links to Jim's website, everything. So don't worry, it's down in the description below for all that. Yeah, just carrying on a bit now. We're going to talk about let's talk of the practical application now of Septemics. You know,
Okay,
so
very good.
so how? yeah, how can an everyday person, use
Okay.
Septemics to improve their relationships? Yeah.
Let's say you're dating this woman for 3 years and you're talking about getting married.
Yeah.
That's a big step, isn't it? Wouldn't it be reasonable to ask yourself, why does this woman want to marry me? I mean, isn't that a reasonable question? I'm not saying to ask her. All right, there's a scale of motivation. Open up the book to the scale of motivation because I did the heavy lifting by getting it down to only 7 levels. So, for example, most people think, oh, there's thousands of motivations. No, all those others are just subsets of these. So, you know the woman because you've been with her for 3 years. You open the book, you read the scale of motivation, and you're going to spot her. So maybe you'll say, I can see level 1. The highest motivation of all is love. That's why she wants to marry me because she loves me. Let's set the date. And maybe that doesn't happen. Maybe when you think about it, you say, now that I thought about it this way, I think the reason she wants to marry me is because I drive a Lamborghini, I have a 60-foot yacht, I fly my own Learjet, I have a $15 million condo, and I have $10 million in the bank. See, that's a different motivation. That's level 4, money. I'm not saying it's good or bad, but it's different. Now, what you choose to do with that is up to you. That's not for me to say, right? So you might say, okay, she wants to marry me for my money. That's not the first time this has happened. But this woman is pretty. She's fun. She's smart. She's got a great sense of humor. We have a good time together. So I'm going to marry her anyway.
Yeah.
And you get married, might live happily ever after. You see, that could happen. Or it might not go that way. You might say, you know what? Now that I spotted this, I'm not going to marry this woman. I want somebody who loves me for myself, not because I have a lot of money. So they break up. Now, you might think in that latter case that he would be upset, and you would be wrong. He will not be upset. You would be relieved. You would say, thank God I figured this out now before I wound up owing her $15,000 a month in alimony.
Yeah.
See, you got the bullet.
Yeah.
See, it's very useful. Now, when you go looking for somebody to fall in love with, you're alert to that. You might not even tell her you have a Lamborghini. You see? Because you want her to like you for yourself. Because, there's a certain type of woman that says, what kind of car do you drive? You say a Corvette, they say, let's ride. If you say a Ford, they say, don't call me, I'll call you.
Yeah.
And I'm not even particularly criticizing it. I'm just saying that's how some people are.
Yeah.
So,
It is what it is.
yeah. So you see how useful that could be to you. So there's you cannot come up with a situation in which Septemics does not apply. For example, most people have children, most children have trouble in school, right? At some point. So maybe you have a 12-year-old boy in school and he's getting C's and D's. You say, Junior, come here, let me show you this. And you open the book to the scale of scholarship. Well, he knows what a scholar is. He's 12 years old. And he's going to look at it. He's going to say, you mean there's a scale of scholarship? You say, where are you on this scale? Guaranteed he's going to want to know that because he's having trouble in the area. So now he looks at it. And what's going to happen is, in a matter of seconds, he will find a bracket. He'll say something like, well, Dad, I can see right away I'm not at level 1, 2, or 3. That's the top of the scale, and I'm not good at this. See, that'll happen in like 15, 20 seconds. Then you say, okay, go ahead and take a look at the text, and then you can get it exactly. Because this is very clear in the book. So he reads the text, you can help him as a tutor, and he comes back to it and says, now that I read this, I can see I'm at level 5. That's not so great, that's near the bottom. That explains why I'm having so much trouble with this. And you say, okay, we can move you up to level 4 and then you will be a better student. He says, you can? You say, yeah, it tells you in the book how to do it. He says, let's do it, right? So you work with him. And just following the instructions in the book. And the next report card, instead of getting C's and D's, he's getting B's and C's. He's gone up a level. He's now a level 4. Okay? Now, that was all done without spending any money, without hiring a tutor, without sending him to remedial classes, without invalidating him, et cetera, et cetera. This is a very congenial, friendly thing. It helps you a bond with your son. See, this is very positive. See, the one thing I have to tell you is never tell anyone their level on any scale, whether it's yourself or another. If you figure out that you're at a certain level on another scale, keep it to yourself. Don't tell anybody. If they want to know what level you're at, they can look at the book and figure it out for themselves. Because, remember I said, whenever you correctly spot a level, you have a realization. And if you tell the person he's not spotting it for himself, you're taking that away from him. The other thing is that people don't like to be evaluated. Like the husband goes to the wife and says, you're 50 pounds overweight. You need to do something about this. You need to go work out every day and go on a diet. She doesn't want to hear that. It's not a question of whether it's true or not. It probably is true. The question is that the right way to do it? No. Give her the book and let her look at the scale of physical fitness, because she'll find, because she's at a lower level in physical fitness, see? Maybe she'll spot she's at level 6, okay? So, or 5. 5 is tired, Well, now that I think about it, I am tired a lot. That's part of the reason I don't work. So now you know how to go about this, you see? You treat her as a tired person. You get her sleeping a lot. You're getting her to eat properly. You're getting her to remove her stress. Now, when she's not tired anymore, she comes up to normal. Now she can work out at the gym. See, she's not tired. So you're able to help her to solve it. She looks at it herself. You're not telling her. She's doing it herself.
Right. It's incredible, how honestly this is something I think I'm going to incorporate in my own life as well. And I encourage people, people watching, try and get that book, get a hold of that book, and truly understand the masterpiece that Jim has created here for all of us to tap into. Something that I think people need to tap into and learn from and try and incorporate into their life. I'm personally going to do that. But we're going to move on and talk about, society, consciousness, and the future. So
Okay.
do you believe that, humanity is evolving toward higher levels of consciousness, as described in your scales, and why or why
Okay.
not?
First of all, I'm not a person who holds beliefs. Normally, when people ask me for beliefs, I say I neither believe nor disbelieve. Do you believe this guy's a drug dealer? I don't believe it and I don't disbelieve it. I don't know.
Okay.
But if I know, that's another thing. That's not belief. If you ask me what's the acceleration of gravity near the surface of the Earth, I'm going to tell you it's 9.8 meters per second per second. That's what it is. It's a fact. Go out and measure it yourself. It has nothing to do with belief. That is what engineers are about. That is why I had such good results with people. I knew what I was doing. It was all based on direct observation and working very specifically to get the person from where he was closer to where he wanted to be. So belief for me, is out of it. But as far as evolution, I would say, I think the best answer for that is just by direct observation, I would say some people are evolving and some people are devolving. And
Okay.
I don't think that's a new thing. I mean, if you go back and study Hinduism, which has been around one way or another for 6,000 years, you get that idea. That's what they talk. That's why they say a person comes into this life with his karma to try to resolve his karma. Well, that's evolving, isn't it? And again, I'm not trying to make you a Hindu. I'm not proselytizing. I'm just saying that's what they teach. This is not a new idea.
Yeah. Yeah. Everyone's talking about AI now. Everyone, it's evolving, the tech world. So, how important is it then for us to deepen our understanding of human potential and inner development in the light of AI?
Okay, so first of all, I don't think AI brings anything to the discussion of human potential. It's a machine. It's a wonderful machine. It's a good machine. I have the highest admiration for the engineers who create those machines. I respect them and I thank them. It's very useful stuff, but it's got nothing to do with human potential. As regards human potential, human society is going the wrong way. Most of the things that we focus on, we shouldn't be focusing. Most of the things we should be focused on, we're not focused on, and that is why the world looks the way it does. I don't know about you, but I follow the news every day of my life. Do you see what's going on? It's just as stupid and crazy as it was 50 years ago or 100
50
years.
years.
Yeah, we used to
It's a
have
loop.
the Salem witch burnings, in Salem where they hung all these women. Which hanged? Did they hang them or burn them? I don't remember.
Yeah.
But anyway, it was like a crazy thing, you know?
Yeah.
We have in the Catholic Church, they would get people who disagreed with them and torture them until either they died or they agreed with them. Okay? So now, how is any of that different from people going around setting Teslas on fire, setting Tesla dealerships on fire, threatening Elon Musk's life? The Tesla company has nothing to do with what Elon is doing in the government. Absolutely nothing. He just volunteered because he saw a problem and he said, I can help with this. And
Yeah.
if you follow, he has been helping. He's finding all kinds of fraud, waste, and abuse, okay, as a result of his efforts. That's no reason to firebomb a Tesla. The car has nothing to do with it. See, it's just crazy.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
just, or like what happened to the Jews on October 7th, a year and a half ago. These crazy people went in there. What did they kill? 1,200 people and kidnapped a whole bunch of others? That's just crazy. It's absolutely insane and evil. It's
Yeah.
no different. It's no different from what Hitler did, rounding up the Jews, rounding up the gypsies, rounding up the gays, and killing them all. It's no different. It's the same. And that is the history of the human race, which I know very well as a serious scholar of history.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a loop, isn't it? Everything going on. Yeah.
What I do see is there are specific people who are wonderful people. Many of these people are my friends, enlightened people, responsible people, people who are helping other people. Those are the people I surround myself with. I spent almost my entire life surrounded by clergy, artists, and intellectuals. These are all smart people, ethical people who are trying to do good things. Do they make little mistakes? Of course, we all make mistakes. But I have absolutely nothing whatsoever to do with drugs, alcohol, bank robbery, nothing. If somebody is into any of that, I'm just not involved with them.
Yeah.
If I find somebody is an alcoholic, we're done
Right.
because you're asking for trouble.
Thank you very much, Jim, for being on the channel today. Really, really appreciate your insights, your work. Yeah. So we're gonna move on now to legacy and insights. Your legacy and what else. So after decades of research, right? What do you believe is the single greatest misunderstanding that people have about human nature? Just one.
Well, first of all, I don't have beliefs, so I can't answer your question. I can tell you, observed in people. What I have observed is that people who do not realize that they are immortal spiritual beings cause a lot of trouble. And all of the people who are doing good realize that they are spiritual beings. So that's obviously a big dividing line. Now, I'm not saying that everyone who realizes he's a spiritual being is a good person, because there's crazy people in that category too. But it's certainly true that if you go to, the greatest people, Jesus and Gautama and Moses and Socrates, they all had this thing in common, that they knew they were spiritual beings and that they would continue after the body died. That's a big, important thing. And it's fairly obvious if you just pay attention to people, you can see that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and you're right. I think, that's very, very obvious. It's obvious that some people don't necessarily have that drive. They don't think there's anything after whatever happens in this world. I think it's something that is very, very important. If every listener walks away with just one idea of Septemics, what do you hope that idea would be?
Well, the one really important thing you should get is that the data in Septemics is vital for every person, and it can help you to achieve your goals faster and easier by explaining what might otherwise seem to be inexplicable or random. So you'll have areas in your life where you don't understand what's going on, and you use this and say, oh, now I understand. And that facilitates success.
Yeah. Cool. I mean, yeah, it's been a very, very interesting chat. It's been lovely having you again. So what's next for you and for this groundbreaking idea, Septemics and them? Is it a movement? Is it a curriculum? Or is this the start of something even bigger?
Well, I certainly hope it's the start of something big in the sense of getting the book to proliferate, which is a lot harder than you might think for very specific reasons. I have done over 360 interviews like this. And the reason I do it is to get people to find out what this is about and hope that they will buy the book. It's available, hardbound, softbound, ebook. Doesn't have to cost you a lot of money if you buy the ebook. And it's very user-friendly. It's not hard to get this. It's not hard to grasp. That's what I'm busy with right now in my life. The book has been so well received that it's kind of taken over my life. People don't like Septemics. They love it. The people who read this and get it, they are effusive in the scale of justification, the scale of belief, the scale of equanimity, the scale of attack, the scale of conflict, and the scale of reaction. And these are the group scales: the scale of relationships, the scale of life spheres, the scale of government, the scale of civilization, the scale of survival, the scale of management, the scale of exchange, the scale of communication, the scale of allegiance, the scale of sexuality, and the scale of politics.
Beautiful.
Any one of these scales by itself could dramatically change your life.
Yeah,
But if
beautiful.
you use them all, it's like a major, major ongoing pattern of evolution in the person.
Beautiful. Guys, check this out. Check out the website, James' website, septemix.com. You're gonna see all this information there. Of course, we're gonna put the link as well to the books where you can buy the books, both the hard copy version and the e-version of it. And everything is on the website, guys. So check this out, check it out, and share this information. Let the world hear about this incredible from Mr. Jim Marshall. Is there anything else you want to add? Do you have any questions for me?
No, not really. I mean, it was very nice to talk to you. You're a very good host. And I hope that your viewers will benefit from my efforts, because your success is my reward.
Thank you very much, Jim. And until I see you next time. So guys, thank you very much again for watching the video. You know what it is, guys. Subscribe to the channel. Let's keep growing, guys. Comment if you have any questions for Jim. Make sure to put it down in the comment section so that we can obviously relate it. And like I said as well, all the links to the books, to the website, to the information you need, they are all there down below. And guys, keep learning. Keep growing. And until I see you in the next one, stay wildly curious. Thank you very much, and God bless.